Hi, Lee Bernstein here from the Be Happy channel. The video will start in just a moment. I wanted to tell you that today we're welcoming back our resident canine expert, Stephanie Barger, who's going to talk about how to speak dog. In other words, how to decode a dog's body language. Let's get started. Can you explain some of dogs' most common signals to communicate their emotions?
I would like to put these in two categories. The first one is the behaviors that we notice that are usually well after the behaviors that we don't notice. So behaviors we notice are things like cowering, growling, barking, lunging, even some of those aggressive behaviors that we label as aggressive, where they're air snapping or even trying to bite. Those are definitely communicating a dog's emotions. However, they are communicating an acceleration, usually, of the dog's emotions, unless you have convinced them that you are not going to pay attention to the more subtle ones and they realize, well, I don't get listened to unless I do X. So you can actually train out and help support your dog before you get the explosions or the big behaviors if you are not paying attention to the more subtle signs. So the more subtle signs can be something as simple as you reach for the dog and they just go back just a little bit, right? I don't know if if people watching YouTube saw that. I just went back just a little bit, or I just a little turn of the head. Okay, it can be as subtle as that. Lick.
What does it mean when they do that?
Ooh, that makes me uncomfortable. I'm
Oh,
not comfortable with that. Now, if you continue to try and engage with them in the same way that you did that, say, for example, you reach for a dog's head. Many dogs do not like that overhead reach that we like to give them, and they'll back off. Now, if you were to continue, then you might get some of those accelerated behaviors, growling. You may get more of the subtle behaviors, such as licking their lips, and that's a very quick kind of flick of the tongue, usually, where it just comes out and they lick their lips a little bit and it goes back in. Another thing that they can do is a stress yawn. Okay, all of these things can be natural behaviors, so you have to take them in context. Natural behavior of yawning usually is associated with the dog just woke up or it's been tired. Whereas a stress yawn is followed by something that is making the dog uncomfortable. And frequently will also include kind of that really big opening of the mouth and kind of almost a shake, how they're opening it so much. And maybe even some vocalization like a whine or that high pitched noise that sometimes we make when we're yawning.
ah,
Exactly. And it may include behaviors like some kind of an avoidance. They'll sniff the ground. They'll go get a drink of water. Oh, I have to go over here and pee. Those kinds of things, any kind of trying to disconnect from the situation or get away from the situation. So frequently we don't recognize those things. And one of the things that I suggest people do is kind of go online and look at all of those pictures of people, especially kids, hugging their dogs, and look at what the dog is doing in that situation. Another thing is called whale eye, and that's when the eyes are really big. You can see the whites of their eyes. They might stiffen up their muzzle, and so their lips become shorter, okay, and tighter.
so I have a question. I was with my youngest daughter. We were sitting in bed watching television. As I recall, there were fireworks going on outside, and the dog is panting. And my daughter Liz said to me, "Mom, he's stressed." I never
Mhm.
knew that panting could mean a dog is stressed. How do you know if when a dog is panting, if they're stressed, or are they stressed when they pant?
And there's a theme here, right? You've got to look at the context. What situation is happening when you're seeing these behaviors in your dogs? So the fireworks would immediately trigger to me that, ooh, that panting may be stress. Then what you're going to be looking at, in addition to the rest of your dog and what they're doing, but look at the tongue. If the dog is hot and just panting, that tongue is going to be much more relaxed. If they're stressed and they're panting, it's going to be stiffer. It might look like a little spoon at the end.
Yeah, I know that. Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Exactly. Exactly.
I didn't mean to stick my tongue out of you.
That's okay. It was a great demonstration.
I know, and I've never noticed that it's not always like that. How interesting. Wow.
Yes.
It's just so crazy that a person like me can have dogs their whole life and really think that you're responding to all of their stuff. And then you learn something like this.
Mm-hmm.
How does understanding a dog's body language improve the relationship between a pet and a pet parent?
Well, the big thing is that it really gives the dog a sense of comfort and safety. Because if you're noticing these things, then you can adjust to support your dog. Oh, there's a dog coming down the street and he doesn't like other dogs. So they've caught sight of it. You see certain signs that your dog is uncomfortable, but they haven't actually done the barking, lunging, growling at the end of the leash yet. And
Mhm.
so you change direction. Or if they're coming down on the same side of the street, you cross the street because that distance is enough for your dog to be comfortable. And then that develops trust because then the dog realizes you are not going to, at least not intentionally, put them in a situation that they are uncomfortable with.
Mhm.
If you do that most of the time, then you are building up. Think of it as a bank account, only it's a trust account. You're making deposits into it all of the time, right? Because you are respecting what your dog is telling you. You're making the proper adjustments so that they can feel more comfortable.
Yeah.
So when you have to take them to the vet, depending on how your dog likes the vet and what they're doing at the vet that time, you're definitely going to be making a withdrawal to that trust account, right? Because they have to get their vaccinations, they have to get this procedure, they have to go to the vet. They may not even like walking into the vet, which that might be a subject for later, is cooperative care.
Oh, I'm going to write that down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, they may not even like going to the vet. And so or they may not like riding in the car to go to the vet. That might be a struggle for them. But if you give them agency and you are showing them, hey, I'm not going to do this unless it's absolutely necessary, then those withdrawals have less damage to your relationship with your dog. And it's easier to build it back up. Think about your bank account. If you have $100 in there and you have to pay a $90 bill, that's a big withdrawal, right? But if you have $3,000 in there and you have to make a $90 bill payment, that is a lot easier to negotiate.
I, you mentioned some signs of stress when we first started, and then we talked a little bit about the panting. Are there any other signs of stress or anxiety in dogs that people often overlook?
So those are the common ones. There are probably other ones. The thing that you want to do is really get versed in general dog language and then figure out your dog's accent, because every dog is different. They're going to react differently. You're going to see different things in different breeds. For example, if you have a dog who generally carries its tail high, that's the breed. A higher tail may have a different meaning. It's about how is the dog changing from their normal calm. If
Yeah.
you guys are looking for some good resources on dog body language in general, First of all, you can probably go on the web, just make sure that you're looking at things coming from reputable trainers or academic sources. But there is Turid Rugas. It's Turidrugas. This is a rather old book, but it's a classic on talking terms with dogs, calming signals. So that's this one. And then Lily Chin does a little book about doggy language. And it breaks it down, and it's a really quick and easy read. It's great for all ages.
So
And then
could you read that to, say, a preschooler or a
mhm,
kindergartner, and they would,
yes, and show them the pictures, because look, it's bullet points
how
about the
cute.
thing, and then there's a little picture.
Oh, that's cute. Oh, my grandson
So
would love that.
that could be a great resource. And then this one is well, I don't know how new this is. It's new to me. It's called Dog Smart Card Game. Learn to be smart and safe around dogs. And so this is a little card game that you can play with your kids. It is geared towards teaching young people how to be safe around dogs, but it will work just as well for the adults. So if you are more visually inclined, they've got color codes, so the red cards, okay? And then there's yellow cards. So it kind of gives you, and green cards. There's also gray cards that may be kind of, not quite in one category or another. But basically, it gives you a picture, and then it tells you what to do in that situation.
That's cool.
Okay.
That's really cool.
And it identifies the warning signs. So this one basically says stiff body showing teeth and hard stare, ears forward.
Yeah, look at that.
Okay. And so you can actually make a game out of it with your children.
I really love that. And I love too that you're focusing on a couple of things that are so good for kids because, kids just love dogs. My grandson loves dogs and he just
Mm-hmm.
wants to go up and hug every dog.
Mm-hmm.
So
And the
I'm digging
sooner you
those.
can educate your children on the signs to look for, the safer they will be.
Yeah,
Even so, the majority of the bites in kids, first of all, they're usually to the face because their face is closer to the dog's face. And frequently it is the family dog. And it's just because that dog may have been very, very tolerant. And then now they've gotten older and they've got a sore leg and they just can't tolerate that kind of handling anymore. And so they lash out, or the child accidentally pushes too hard someplace and it hurts.
yeah,
Or they've just had enough
right.
because they've given all of these subtle signals and they're continually being, poked at and prodded and fussed with.
So if I take my dog to the park,
Mhm.
should I look for the same type of signs and signals that I look for at home, or when they're out in different environments, does their body language change, or both?
So it kind of depends, as a lot of things do with dog training. Frequently, they will use the more accelerated things because the environment is more there, right? At home, they're much more relaxed. They know the routine. They are familiar with all of the sounds and the smells and that kind of thing. So you're not necessarily going to, unless you have problems in the home, like they're fearful of people, guests coming
Right,
over,
right.
those kinds of things. But if they're not, you're not going to really see much in the way of low level signs because they're not really experiencing anything that's making them uncomfortable.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. It's stuff that is common.
Hmm.
And then when you go out in the environment, that's when You have no control over what's going on around you. People might get too close. The activities might be too intensive for the dog to be comfortable with. They may not like to be around other dogs if it's not dogs in their house. So they might become more pronounced, and they might escalate more quickly.
Okay. So, what are some signs for interpreting body language during dog-to-dog interactions? Um, I have 3 dogs, and even
Mhm.
mine sometimes will still get into it a little bit. Of course,
Mhm.
there's always the alpha dog thing, trying to establish, who's on the higher end of the pecking order. But how can you, what do you look for?
Well, I don't look at it as being alpha or submissive, dominant, submissive. If you think about our relationships as people, there are situations where I may take the lead on something. For example, training your dog. I'll take the lead. In that situation, I would be dominant because I'm better equipped to be able to teach that and show point out observations and make sure that you're progressing. But if you were in charge of whatever the project was, okay, then that you have a skill set that's different than mine. So when you're looking at dogs that are free roaming, you don't see so much the dominant submissive. You see some dogs taking leads in certain situations and some dogs taking leads in others. The dominant alpha kind of concept is very outdated and
Oh,
was based on studies done with wolves in captivity that were not a family unit. So it wasn't even accurate from a
wow.
wolf standpoint, and it was being applied to by dogs.
That is so good to know.
Yes, yes.
Wow. I
If
always,
anybody's interested in more about how dogs behave in groups, take a look at some of the studies that have been done on street dogs in various parts of the world. There are some parts of the world where there are just groups and groups of street dogs, and people are studying them.
wow.
So you can get much more concrete information about how dogs interact socially than you will buying into the alpha and dominance theories.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm learning
Yes.
so much by talking. And you mentioned socially, actually, just so everyone knows, the next interview that we're doing with Stephanie is going to be about discovering dog socialization. A lot of people, including myself, think socialization is one thing, but for somebody who really loves and understands dogs, it might be something else. So make
Right,
sure that you
right.
tune in.
And
Anything?
did you want me to answer that question though about uh dog interaction?
Yes, please. Sorry.
You're going to be looking for the same things, only you're going to be watching 2 dogs or 3 dogs.
Okay.
And so you're going to be looking for things like hard stares, licking their lips. A lot of people don't realize that one dog might be bullying the other dog because they're calmly laying over here on the side of the room while the other one is playing with a toy, chewing on a bully stick, whatever. But the dog that's laying over here, supposedly not doing anything, is staring at the other dog. What they are doing is they're trying to make the other dog uncomfortable enough that they will get up and leave the thing that they want. Okay. So, I mean, there could be other things that they're trying to do, but that's a little bit of bullying, right? That social pressure of the stare to get the dog to move away from the object. Now, some dogs are smart. They'll get up and move and take the thing with them. But unless there's serious damage, we always get sometimes it can be very loud and noisy and scary sounding. But unless there is damage to one dog or the other, tiffs happen,
Mhm.
just like with kids, right? Brothers and sisters, they have tiffs all of the time. Hopefully, nobody ends up in the emergency room.
Yeah.
So, little arguments every once in a while, sparingly, but most of the time they get along fine, that do not result in injury of either people or other dogs or animals in the house. Try not to get real worked up about it.
Question, and I know we're going over, but I really want to know the answer to this. So, should you just let them kind of watch them and duke it out, or should you correct them and tell them that they shouldn't do that?
Well, I would be trying to catch them before they get into the tiff. So that dog that was staring, I would be telling them, go get your ball, go lay down. Um, I would be giving them direction so that they are no longer doing that behavior to make the other dog uncomfortable. The biggest tool that you have is a redirect. I am not a big fan of letting dogs just kind of work it out. In my experience, that frequently will lead to escalated behaviors and then vet visits and damage to people and dogs. And when you're breaking up a dog fight, most people, which you should not do, try and reach and grab a dog's collar. You're putting your hands right where the teeth are. And a lot of times where we end up getting injured because our dogs are fighting, the dogs may have absolutely no injuries on them at all, but because you put your hand right in the middle of it, you got bit.
Hmm, good to know.
So some kind of redirection. So at the lower stages, if you're looking at having to break up a fight, those are more intensive stages, and maybe that's another topic.
Yes, I'm going to write that down. Thank you, Stephanie, so much. I can't wait till we get together again. Just a reminder to everyone that Stephanie is available to you. She works with people virtually. So if you have the need for working with a dog behavior specialist, she's unbelievably brilliant, as you can tell from the interview today. And she also offers a free care call that I will link to below. So if you just want to call her and say, hey, do I need to talk to you? She's there to tell you yes or no. Talk to you again soon, Stephanie. Thank you so much.
Wonderful as always, Lee. Thank you.
Bye bye.